Welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome to our Age of Brilliance Part 47. It's great to see everyone. Um, it is up on the hour, so we're going to get started. So tonight, or this morning, it's Age of Brilliance Part 47, the 12 Pathways to Happiness. The transmission today is number 5, and it's Radiating Positivity. So, what is your greatest contribution is not what you say and not what you do, but the energy that you bring to it. Energy speaks long before words. In this powerful transmission, discover how to become someone whose presence lifts every room, radiating an energy that creates safety, possibility, and joy. Learn to become conscious of the frequency that you carry, protect what you transmit, and cultivate the kind of presence that leaves people lighter simply because they were with you. Love that menu. I cannot wait to hear what that's going to bring us.
Great. Let's begin. Let's begin. Yeah, I'm always very, very happy to come back to the Age of Brilliance transmissions. So today is the fifth pathway to happiness. And remember, happiness is a decision that you make. That's where it begins. And once you've made that decision to be happy, then joy is the action you take. And each of these transmissions, each of these pathways are pathways that you can only take your first step once you've made the decision to be happy. So that's the key thing to always remember. Okay. So this one is all about radiate positivity. And the core distinction here is energy is what speaks long before words. There are people that we meet, and it feels really good to meet them. There are people that we see in a room, and it feels really good to be with them. And there are places that we go to, and it feels really good to be there. And it's, even though nobody may have spoken anything, and there isn't anything greatly unusual about a place. It's just the energy that communicates to us first. Remember, as a human, we are a collection of cells, and 123 trillion of them, and we are concentrated in this human form. And yet, our presence is far more magnanimous and grand and spacious than just this human form. So the energy is the way communication occurs with the rest of our presence. Our human form also experiences this energy, and our mental cylinder infuses various ways in which we could interpret that energy. Our physical cells take some time to actually absorb that energy. Hence, when I do the human vibe attunement, I use the sequence: I acknowledge, I receive, I accept. That's the sequence of the physical form. Okay. So once you get that the energy communication begins with your presence, and your mental cylinder is activated before any other cylinder to create an interpretation. If you are someone who has got all 6 cylinders firing and thriving, then you will remain connected to spirit no matter what. And you will be able to experience as a witness, as an observer, and choose to engage or not with the energy that is coming at you. When you are stationed in spirit, that is what inspiration means. In spirit, I am stationed. When you are stationed in spirit, you are one with your soul presence, and the spiritedness of you expresses itself, and it naturally radiates positivity. But if you've made a choice and a decision of suffering, remember I talked about happiness and suffering are two sides of a decision coin. If you've made a decision of suffering, then your mental cylinder is super active and your emotional cylinder is inflamed. So mental cylinder seeks out pain. An emotional cylinder feels it and propagates it. Each of our cylinders, particularly the emotional one, is regenerative. The mental one is not regenerative. Its only job is to project out thoughts. And those thoughts are applied to something that it is choosing to interpret in the form of meaning. So all it's doing is generating thoughts, projecting thoughts. Emotion is the feel. And once the mental cylinder becomes overactive, the emotional cylinder, regenerates its feelings. If your spiritual cylinder is firing at the same level as the mental and emotional, you remain stationed in spirit. You can experience your emotions and let them be. Some of those emotions will pass and some will stay. In this context, in the age of brilliance, to remain plugged into your brilliance and express your brilliance, the decision of happiness is what enables that. You can do positive incantations. They don't radiate positivity if your brain does not believe what you're incantating. They're great when you are speaking them. Remember, positive incantations spoken aloud are actually far more impactful than positive incantations that you just think. They just become one of a whole, clutter of thoughts. But when you speak them, you are engaging the physical cylinder and the mental cylinder. Because when you speak them, you're tapping all of those wonderful, termination points of the different channels through which energy moves, the 62,000 of those channels, they terminate into your mouth. So when you're speaking the positive incantations aloud, the vibration is created through the tapping. It engages your physical cells, and anything that contradicts the vibration that is being tapped in starts to disintegrate and release. These are little nuances of that is coming through as downloads on how you work with the different cylinders. And it's really great that I'm very grateful that Spirit is getting me to connect them to the Age of Brilliance transmissions. So I was once I got that positive incantation, just like a temporary fix, it wasn't something that I engaged in much at all. I was all about get real, make an empowered choice. The reality is only in the moment. In the moment, what's true is only what is. And what is you have a heart that's beating, it is singing. So a miracle is here right now. So let's get real, find what are the miracles that are making your heart sing. And that's, of course, supremely powerful. Positive incantations spoken aloud can also be powerful. They take some time to kick in. You have to tap and really get your cells vibrating, which is why when you do the chanting experiences, they chant the same chant for quite an extended period of time for your cellular being to vibe that chant. Now, really all we are doing is getting our energy flowing in a particular way so that this distinction of radiating positivity becomes a
You're freezing up a bit. You. You're
because it
freezing.
speaks to positivity. What that does, okay, is it okay now?
Yes, now it's okay.
Okay. And the pathway, what happens when you're walking this pathway, it's a pathway for where you're choosing to be that radiance of positivity, a state in which your presence lifts every room simply by your state of being. When you apply the radiating positivity to a decision of happiness, that is this connection is the catalyst that speeds up the this impact of your presence lifts every room. And you're someone whose innate vibration is illuminating, right? So you experience this because you choose to operate this way. And I've seen it happen in a variety of rooms, you know, from talking to investors to ecstatic dance or to, just talking to kids anywhere at all. Because deep down at a cellular level, you're really radiating your light. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I find it to be one of my gifts, which I don't take lightly. And yeah, yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
It's
I
fun
want
to
to
do.
just pick on this phrase that you use, I don't take lightly, right? Um, the interesting thing is by connecting happiness to a decision, we don't take it lightly. We make a conscious decision, right? Which is why that decision itself becomes a catalyst, you know? So we'll continue and we're still at the start of it. And really, what is happening here, what is actually going on here? What's happening here is um, your frequency, your vibrating frequency is what is shifting. And in the age of brilliance, this is the hidden nugget of the age of brilliance. Your frequency is your most valuable currency, and it is your greatest contribution. So rather than, only engaging with I'm going to uplift my frequency now, let's have it be a consequence of our choices and decisions and actions. And to be able to achieve that, it calls us to be consciously aware of the choices and decisions and actions that we take. And you don't take anything lightly. And by not taking anything lightly, you actually experience a lightness of being like you have never experienced before. So if I was to, so whenever I get these preparations, so I've got the preparations for all of the 12 pathways, and we are only on number 5 right now. I've often said, whatever you give energy to is what you get more of. And here we are talking about energy speaks long before words. And I was looking at my own life, and there's so many incidents that I've already talked about. But there's something that's like occurred very recently that I want to really highlight and illustrate how this is playing out. So, I have a family member, a young kid, is, the next generation, and he's a very gifted, talented musician. And he's the one who's actually taught me how to get my music out into the world. David and Helene got me to become a music producer using AI. Thank you for that. And this kid showed me how to get it copyrighted and how to get it out into the various music platforms. And, he does some really funky stuff with my words and music and poetry as well. So, I have a lot of love and care for him. And I recently met this girl, and they've been singing together, creating music together for a few years, and finally decided that it's time for them to become lovers and partners. And she comes from a particular family, from a part of India, which experienced very severe, very gruesome and grotesque terrorism. So there was widespread annihilation of um, whole a whole community by the terrorists, right? So her parents have been overprotected. They fled and they became refugees in India, and they are overprotective about their daughter to such an extent that if they even get a hint that she's in love with someone of the other faith that caused the annihilations, they would much rather kill her. It's called honor killing, than actually allow that to happen. Now, my nephew is not from the other faith. However, his name sounds like he is, right? So they had it was quite hair raising when they found out that these two are finally deciding to wanting to get married to each other. And they did everything they possibly could. These kids were hunted and hounded, and they had to flee from one place to another, and they hid in the hills and stuff. And now they are actually visiting Thailand. So they're here with us, right? They've just visited, like they arrived this morning, but they visited Thailand. Now, what I'm seeing is a very um, interesting pattern, which actually ties in with this particular pathway. So my nephew has clearly made a decision to be happy, and he takes actions that give him joy. This girl loves that about him because he brings out that joy in her. And yet, she has been so tightly controlled and constantly been fed the stories of what happened to their society, and that she should never do this and never do that. And, like so much stuff has been ingrained in her that anytime she experiences a sense of joy, there is a whole different personality of obsessively controlling personality that shows up, and also a personality which is rebelling against control shows up. So now that they are partners, before they were friends and they were co-creators of music. So my nephew didn't quite see this piece occurring, right? Whereas now that they are, and especially now that they are in Thailand, in India, they were running from one place to another. So it was an adventure, and both of them were together and doing it. In Thailand, they've been here now for nearly 2 weeks, and only visiting me today. So, so I'll find out more when I meet with them. But what I'm seeing from how it is being playing out, it is so for her, it has been ingrained in her that don't stay in joy for too long. Be aware, there's pain coming at you. And especially from people with these names, people with these with these beliefs, right? So taken on and made that decision of suffering. So pain is a justification she seeks. Innately, she loves the lightness of being that she gets being with my nephew, and when they were, but now he's feeling really dragged by this massive weight. And he said that she doesn't even say anything, but I just feel like I can't move forward at all. And so his light comes from radiating, his radiating positivity comes from his music. So I said to him that, look, here you are in Thailand, you're having all sorts of different experiences. You can create music at a drop of a hat, and that's where you're going to be with her, until you leave on Sunday. So may as well make music, make music and see what emerges for you. So the moment I said that to him, he started connecting to actions that give him joy. Now he was able to do that, and he's created some great music pieces actually with what is emerging, you know, um, and as they are, starting to become co-creators, um, everything was going really well, they were really enjoying themselves. But literally every couple of days, she goes into this space where she just goes on an attack. And she's like, blaming him that you nag, you're always doing this, you're not doing this, and all that stuff. And if nothing lands with him, she will go and do a huge amount of wasteful shopping, which he's done, lots of it, right? So they arrived here with 10 bags, like so much stuff that they arrived here with. And so she's in pain because she's been carrying all this stuff, and he's in pain because he's been. So I'm like seeing these two pathways all stemming from this decision to be happy or decision to be sad. And actually, when you listen to their music or you watch them together, both of them together, you feel their presence really light up the room. Even their words, the sound that they create together lights up the room. But then the moment too much light comes in, because the decision is one of suffering, she finds pain. And she goes down that track. And she can sit there. With my nephew, who's made the decision to be happy, if he's not taking actions that give him joy, the drag down from her pain attacks, we call it, actually, it's like he's sliding down this dark hole that he has no control over. So he could see that, and really all that is called for is for him to step into his source mastery, which he knows, and take actions that give him joy at this point, even if it is tiny little actions. For her, I will meet her and I'll get a sense of what can be done as a superficial fix before the deep ingrained cellular programming can actually be healed. She requires deep-seated cellular healing because of the indoctrination that she has had from a very young age. Like she has this other person who truly believes that world of attack, annihilation, destruction of a whole society is very alive and kicking. And that's the environment that little being sits in. So she only allows herself to enjoy this other world only a little. And if she goes beyond that, this inner being steps out. So it's a nuanced thing. I think that's the reason why we've got 12 individual transmissions for happiness. So let's continue about this amazing pathway of radiating positivity. Always begins with a decision. Now, what happens when you do radiate positivity? People begin feeling safer around you. That's what has happened to my nephew's partner. You know, when they were creating music together, she started feeling safe around him. And there was a great comparison because she would feel safe and then go home, and then it was such an unsafe environment. So the contrast made her feel even safer around my nephew. In Thailand, there is no going home, there is only the home that exists inside of her, which is the one that has made the decision to be in suffering. So the amount of breakdowns they're having are quite phenomenal, spectacular breakdowns. Nonetheless, when they reconnect on something that brought them together, which is music, she starts to feel safe. He's, of course, in his element, and both of them together radiate amazing positivity. If you choose not to walk this pathway, then the negative energy very quietly takes a gripping hold and isolates you. So here she is, you know, to her own self-proclaimed love of her life, without the running craziness like a fugitive that they were experiencing in India, and constantly allowing herself to get into this crazy barrage of negativity, which starts to isolate her. And that negative energy is so strong that even my nephew, who does love her completely, even he feels he just needs to have this space to himself. So at least we found a way in which they can, reprogram themselves. There's of course a lot of work to be done on what she is going through internally in her internal terrain. The good thing to remember is people start feeling safer around you simply by you being who you are, and
A little bit of
you
freezing now.
choosing to walk this pathway of
Yeah, you've been frozen for the last.
radiating
Can you hear me?
positive. Hear you?
Okay, I can hear your voice now. It was all jumbly for the last minute. I'd say about a minute. You're still frozen. Are you guys hearing anything?
No, no, she's frozen.
Okay. Oh, maybe she'll. Okay, Minu.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
So where did I stop?
Um, I'd say about a minute or two in. I can't remember exactly. I was trying to get you.
I think it was how the negativity isolates you.
Okay. Okay.
Thanks, Liz.
Okay. Just hold on. I'm just having it connect to my phone. Okay, this should be okay. Yeah, so really what I was saying was the cost of not walking this pathway is the negative energy buildup that takes place. and that starts to isolate you. And I was just sharing about the my observation of my nephew and his partner. you know she gets that lightness of being when they are when they are creating music together, and then too much of that starts to shock her, and she doesn't want to continue that because she's made a decision of suffering and has to seek pain. Her negative energy buildup really starts to rev up. And as a result, even though now they're not a fugitive, nobody's chasing them, there's no threat to their life, nothing at all, um, she starts building up so much negativity that she starts isolating herself. That's the cost of not consciously making the decision to be happy and walking this pathway of radiating positivity. The reward, of course, is that you become magnetic. And when you are magnetic, it transforms the amount of influence you have. How you can influence the environment that you're in, what the impact you can have on the causes that you feel, drawn to. Carrying negative energy makes it so much harder, and you are absolutely not magnetic. That's the key thing to remember. So, to enjoy the reward of magnetic influence, radiate positivity is the pathway of happiness. Of course, at first, the prerequisite is your decision to be happy. How do you know that you are actually radiating positivity? People leave your presence lighter. You feel that sense, like there's an exhale, and there's a lightness, and there's humor, and all of that starts to evolve naturally. So that's how you know that you are on track. Of course, you feel that lightness of being presence in yourself as well. Radiating positivity is such an amazing, thriving, regenerative pathway that when you get into it, it's a vibe that you can't resist. It's irresistible. And it makes you irresistible as well. So your indicator is people leave your presence lighter. You feel it. And the reality is that, people rarely remember our words. They always remember how they felt. So they're really remembering your energy. And words is secondary. Sometimes you're just not feeling up to it. Energetically, you're not quite there. In which case, use your words, but then you need to follow chanting or incantation spoken aloud to bring about that shift. I find if you have already started creating your treasure trove of actions that give you joy, and if you haven't, make sure that you do, become consciously aware of a variety of situations, actions, connections, ways of being, experiences that instantly give you joy, so that you can reconnect your decision of happiness and you can tap into those actions that give you joy. And they have an impact on you radiating positivity. The thing that I want to bring out here is radiating positivity doesn't mean shutting out the negative. If there is something that is unacceptable, what you want is to be able to remain connected to the spirit of you and be able to witness as opposed to become the negative, become the negativity. So, radiating positivity allows you to take whatever is coming at you full on. I mean, some of the things that these two kids, my nephew and his partner, went through in India were quite scary. So, I mean, I just think there is something there in him having made the decision to be happy and starting to take actions that give him joy, that they made the decision to fly to Thailand. And that in itself came from him energetically not being consumed by what they were experiencing. I mean, to me, it's pretty shocking that stuff like this still occurs in this day and age. And it is important for me I can't just say, oh, I shouldn't be thinking like that. I'm very spiritual. Well, it is shocking to me. But doesn't mean that I become that. Doesn't mean I allow it to take too much of my time or energy. But no, and I want to be able to acknowledge it fully so that it can actually leave my being and not have an energetic hold on me. And that is really what gets enabled here. You make the decision to be happy, start taking actions that give you joy, start walking one or several of these pathways. The radiating positivity is a natural consequence. Now, what I've done is I've started actually distilling some of the actions that give me joy, and I'm looking at which of those I can actually see my way of being shifting, where I'm radiating positivity. And there are some actions that give me joy where I start radiating positivity. And right now, I'm my 8-year-old grandson. Ever since he's got into AI programming and he's created a mod, which is a module for a Minecraft, right? It's a very popular game online, and people buy mods, different mods, right? So this little kid has become a little businessman because people are buying his mod, you know. Um, so having business conversations with him, the kind of questions he's asking, they really do radiate positive. I mean, I feel I'm radiating positivity, having that communication with him. And I was like beaming with positivity when we had the first day induction in school. We all go there. I mean, as a family, we all go to these things. If whoever is in town, if I'm in town, I make it a point to go there. So the new teacher was like saying, okay, so what else? What else goes on in your world that could have an impact on your studies? And different kids were saying different things. And Elio goes, Miss, my time is really busy when I get back home because I have a business. She said, oh, what is the business? It's a business I've created a mod, and people are excited about the mod. The teacher has no idea what a mod is. She doesn't even know what Minecraft is at this point. And then another kid comes up and he says, can I become a reseller of your mod? These are 8-year-olds having a conversation in a classroom. And Elio goes, yeah, yes, we can, but we will have to have an agreement. Okay, let me send you an agreement. Teachers like gobsmacked at what is going on here. Before we actually finished with the school, an agreement was sent by Elio to this other kid. It's like, for him to become a reseller of his mod. I mean, I don't even know what all of that even means, but I was radiating positivity. that, okay, this is interesting. What is happening here? Because he's really not of this world. So this is one of his very first human lifetimes. So a lot of what humans do makes no sense whatsoever to him. So he can sometimes go into a state of feeling pain and suffering at the state of the human race and how it makes choices and decisions. So for me, it's a very big thing to see that switch starting to occur. So the key thing is people rarely remember your words, they always remember your energy. Anything you want to say or share at this point, Dea? Have gone on for too long.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is really good. I really do believe like even now, like your presence, we're talking about presence, but presence can be with the work we do in the physical form presence and also can be, cosmic presence or, telepresence, right? We do that
Yeah,
too. So
yeah.
I thought of that presence being a wider, expansive type of
Mm.
presence that we radiate. Anyway, that kind of came up for me when we were talking.
Yeah, yeah. I think the
I,
main thing is because we are talking about energy, people experience energy. If you take one thing away from today is that, your energetic presence extends far, far, far beyond your physical human form. Absolutely, it's there in the physical form, but it extends far beyond that. And if you are aware of that, so as a result, if you're energetically feeling weighed down, it takes a while for it to hit you physically, but when it does, it actually really feels so heavy and difficult to move, you know? So, but if you've made the decision to be happy, you're taking actions that give you joy, you're creating these ripple effects across all of these different energy bodies of yours, you become open to receiving a higher frequency back. you know so
Mhm.
really where I'm going with this series of on happiness is getting us to understand these pathways, because these pathways really call you to fire on all cylinders so that you can be regeneratively thriving on all the six cylinders, and no one cylinder can become truant and take over.
I also really liked you reminding us of when we're not feeling that we're happy and present and positive and all that, to remind us to use our toolbox to
Yeah,
get back into that state. So that's always, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
We're
absolutely.
blessed to have a big toolbox full of stuff to
Yeah,
use.
yeah, yeah. And it has some tools that you've learned from me, but more importantly, actions that give you joy are going to be your actions. It's a true collaborative co-creation between us with the divine, because these are transmissions, and we are bringing about coexistence. So the key thing to remember here is that there is an energy that you, by your presence, bring into every room, even before you say a single word. People feel it. This just even sharing this reminds me of when I first met Dadi Janki. Not first, this was like a third or fourth meeting. Now, the first time I met her, it was at my friend Gina's place, who Dea you know very well, right? So, and there were only 25 of us. Dadi Janki is no more. She has ascended, but she was a very important leader of a major organization called the Brahma Kumaris. And there are 90,000 people that she worked with. They were her team all over the world. Now, the first time I met her, we were only 25 of us, and I had no idea what a privilege it was for us, only 25 of us, to meet her so closely. It was beautiful. It felt really good. Then I met her a couple of times again in small groups, and then I was invited to her London event. I go to the London event. It's at the Royal Festival Hall. There are like 3 tiers of seating, maybe 10,000 people or so, completely fully packed. And it was extremely noisy. Everyone was like it was buzzing with excitement and extremely noisy. And Dadi Janki was like 4'8", 4'9", so quite a short woman. And I was like, really, and the stage was there. We were on the second balcony because there was no space anywhere else. So we could see her. There were huge screens on either side, and all we had was one chair and a couple of sofas, and a small table with a lamp and some flowers around it. That's all we could see from the top. So much noise, so much noise, like ridiculous amount of noise. And then suddenly there's pin drop silence. And I see that Dadi Janki is walking on the stage and she sits down. So she's already short. Now she's sitting down, so she's even smaller. And there's pin drop silence, almost an uncomfortable silence, because she does not say a word. And all I'm seeing her is looking around the Royal Festival Hall in a gaze, and she probably couldn't see anything or anyone because we were all dark. The stage is what was lit up. But she was literally just going section by section by section. It must have taken her 10, 15 minutes even of absolute silence. And you felt the vibration was so strong. You felt that presence of her, and when she came towards our side, I could even feel that connection energetically. And I was like, wow, just a few days ago, there were only 20 of us with this amazing woman. What power, what strength to be able to walk into a room and say nothing and command absolute presence of each one. And then when she finished, she may have spoken for about 5 minutes or so, and then she left. But everybody was electrified. There was no need for people to speak too much after that anyway. It took us a while to assimilate everything that had happened. So it wasn't the words at all. It literally was an energy transmission and an energy exchange between us that took place. And that is where I understood the power of having all of our energy bodies in sync. So here's a woman. What enabled this 4'9" woman to command this entire room of 10,000 people, most of them from cultures that were nowhere close to where she came from? It was that she had perfectly mastered bringing all of her energy bodies in complete sync. They were in absolute harmony and sync to her innate brilliance. So her words were her connection. I mean, I met her several times since, and I've had a few one-on-ones, and I did chat to her about this. I said, "What is it that you did?" And she said, "For me, my words are the connections. If I cannot connect, then my words have no impact. And there is then no need to use any words. And I can actually communicate everything simply by connecting." So remember, she was a human as much as you and I are humans. It's a matter of you doing what it takes, which is why the Age of Brilliance transmissions are taking place, which is why I do the work of living from source, and I know there are several of you who've done it, so that you can start harmonizing across all of your energy bodies. So where the energy you bring into a room, before you even say a single word, people feel it. The Dadi Janki experience is absolutely that. They feel whether you arrive carrying possibility or you arrive carrying problems. I met my nephew and his partner this morning. They arrived at 5 a.m. And he totally felt he's arrived carrying possibility. She did not arrive carrying problems, but there was like confusion. She arrived carrying confusion. People feel whether you bring expansion or you bring contraction. And I've seen you entering the room and people feeling illuminated. They feel expanded, you know. And there are many people, and we've all experienced them. They enter the room and people contract, and even you feel there's nothing, no point in saying anything. Whether your presence says you are safe here or asks everyone else to carry what you brought in. That is the main distinction. Your energy is always communicating. And it's able to communicate far deeper than your words ever would be able to. I have this publishing team. So I write, the publishing team publishes, and then the marketing team gets it out into the world, and the book becomes bestsellers. So the publishing team is really keen to convert my books into audiobooks. And there's a lot of people that want audiobooks, right? Now, my books are they're substantial books. So I'm like, when am I going to have the time? I need to have a proper studio. They say, no, AI will do it all for you. It'll be in your voice. That's not the point. It's not my voice created by AI. It's my energy is what I wish to communicate if I'm doing an audiobook. So remember, whether your presence says you are safe here or asks everyone else to carry what you brought in. There are some people, when you interact with them, you suddenly feel so heavy and weighed down, even if they have not said anything. That's the presence. Carry what I brought in, whatever that might be. Your energy is always communicating. That's a key thing to remember. And in the age of brilliance, we become conscious of what we are transmitting. We actually, whether you want it or not, you become conscious of what you're transmitting. Radiating positivity does not mean pretending everything is wonderful. It actually means whatever is happening, you refuse to become the carrier of heaviness. You observe it, you acknowledge it, and you complete on it. It is important to share and declare it complete and unconditionally accept what is. Otherwise, you remain a carrier of heaviness. You can acknowledge difficulty without becoming difficult yourself. You can face uncertainty without spreading fear. You can encounter negativity without being the source of multiplying it. By your choice, you can become the person that brings light, warmth, possibility, encouragement, laughter, generosity, joy. Imagine entering every interaction, asking, how can people feel better because I am here? Not as an ego thing, but more by your presence. How can people feel better because I'm here? Not because of what you gave them, not because of what you fixed, simply because of who you were in their presence. wherever and whatever their presence may be like. This is what I call as magnetic influence. There's a whole transmission on magnetic influence, Age of Brilliance transmission, which will follow after happiness. People automatically begin to relax around you. They feel seen, they feel safer, they remember possibility, and they leave you somehow lighter than when they arrived. And that is an extraordinary contribution, you know? So become conscious and fiercely protective of your frequency. Notice what you carry into your conversations. Notice what you amplify. The words you use repeatedly, that's what you're amplifying. Notice what you leave behind. Because every encounter gives you a choice. And the choice is, will I add to the weight of this world? Or will I add to its light? Both exist. I choose light. When you make the decision of being happy and embark on taking actions that give you joy, you also choose light. By you simply being and showing up, you radiate it so consistently that positivity is not something you practice. It becomes your energy signature. Your presence becomes the smile before a smile, the encouragement before your words, the possibility before a solution, the light before anyone even knows they needed it. People rarely remember our words, they always remember our energy. So wherever you go, leave the room lighter because you were in it. Over to you, Dea, to complete
Wow.
the session.
What great advice. Leave the room lighter because you were in it. Yeah, this is something I live by. So you're speaking to me, and I just love to be the bringer of light, and illuminating the way forward is like the way I tell myself your job is to illuminate the way forward. And when I find myself getting too heavy into politics or social media and all the negativity, I can feel it pull me. And I have to consciously now, even more than ever with the AI and all the distractions, move myself back. So I think it's become even a more of a practice we have to do as we move
Mm,
forward. So that's what I share. But this was just a lovely transmission. Thank you. And
thank
thank you
you.
everyone for being here.
Thank you. I'm loving it. I mean, there's such depth of what I'm able to bring out about the 6 cylinders. Much of that came about in Bali, and you spend a fair bit of time with me in Bali and Jakarta and stuff. So,
I
um,
sure did. Wow. What a journey we've been on, me and you.
I know, and Dea knew me before, by the way,
I
before I
know, but she had
became,
no hair. No.
well, you knew me before that even, where I did have hair. Uh, and then, of course, everything changed.
Yeah, so good.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone. I
Thank you,
know.
everyone.
Leave the room lighter because you were in it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Namaste. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye-bye.